Maybe you feel like you have a lot of untapped potential and you want to start bridging that gap. Maybe you aren't satisfied with your rank and you want to become good enough to get to the next level. Or maybe you feel like you've hit a wall and you just can't improve. If you are in any of these situations or more, this video is for you. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content designed to help you rank up just like this. Hello everyone, my name is Atchax and this is how to improve at Valorant. Let's make our goal clear. Improvement is typically a question of efficiency. It's easy to eliminate an opposing player, eventually, but eliminating them before they eliminate you, that's where the difficulty lies. A lot of players try to become more efficient by making themselves faster through continuous, repetitive practice, aka grinding. Grinding is one of, and I can say this with some authority, the least efficient ways to improve. You see very little improvement for a lot of time and practice. I like the opposite. A lot of improvement with very little time and practice. This video is going to talk about how to become efficient efficiently. If we want to improve a lot in a very small amount of time, we should generally cast the thought of forcing our bodies to become faster aside. This sort of training takes a long time, and we'll come back to it later. The fact is, almost all players are very good at getting in their own way. My favorite example of this is crosshair placement. A lot of players are looking nowhere near their opponents when they aim, and they have to move their mouse really far. Players with great crosshair placement barely have to move their mouse at all, which makes aiming easy. Good crosshair placement is a lot better for a player's efficiency than dragging your mouse more quickly, but super far. Besides, it takes 5 minutes to learn good crosshair placement compared to untold hours of grinding to make your aim even comparably fast with bad crosshair placement, if that's even possible. The key to improving quickly is learning methods that are more efficient than the inefficient ones you are currently using so that you can get out of your own way and tap more into your natural talent. Let's talk about how and where to learn things efficiently. Your own games are a good starting point. Other players tend to do things differently than you. Watch them and learn from them. This can be very efficient if you are looking and very inefficient if you aren't, or if you are influencing their gameplay by doing something like backseat gaming. Here's the most valuable tip for this section. Don't just learn from better players. Learn from different players. By this I mean anytime anyone is doing something different from you, add it to your toolbox. Even players who are having a bad game. For example, that 4-17 Reyna on Bind got to their rank somehow. A lot of players who bottom frag really badly have 1 or 2 all-in strategies and just aren't very adaptable. So they can win big or lose big, but they will never adjust. If that one way of playing the game carried them that far, imagine what you could do if you grabbed all sorts of these methods and used them in the right situations. Just because someone is doing something differently doesn't mean it's a good idea, especially with mechanics. But people have all sorts of cool tricks and strategies that are great ideas in the right situation. I would recommend keeping a notepad next to you to jot down the things you find that you want to apply later. It's like a grocery list except cooler because it's full of ways to win Valorant. Next, we're going to talk about learning from content creators. There are 2 kinds you will want to consider: pro gameplay and content designed to help you improve. You can watch pro gameplay and basically do the same thing you do when trying to learn from teammates in your games, except the pros are much, much better. I personally really like watching Hiko and Wardell, who are both of course super talented. By watching Hiko, I learned to place my crosshair farther from the wall when holding an angle, and to right click while using the classic. From Wardell, I learned to walk around in hardscope at the same time. Once again, you're looking for difference. Try to find new ways of doing things you already do, and things you've never thought of. While you're at it, be very careful not to get swept away in montages. Montages are flashy, but they often display a cherry picking of successful high-risk plays. If you want to win, you'll want to play in a manner where you succeed more often than you fail, and jumping no-scopes is not a good way to do that. In both of the previous sources, you don't have a lot of choice in what you learned. With the YouTube search bar, you have a lot of control. The immediate question is, what should you look for? Try to find something you don't know anything about if possible. Why? It's a lot easier to pick up a skill than master it. It still amazes me how many people will look up 15 different aim videos, but still have no idea how to execute a fake without committing to the wrong site. It can be difficult to find things you don't know because if you knew what to look up, you would probably know it. If you want a lesser known category to search up, we will talk about that near the end of the video. When you're watching videos, you should be aware that you will run into overlaps where you know information already. I would recommend watching some segments about things you think you already know. Remember, you're looking for different ways to do things, and someone may have a new idea under a familiar title. That's one of the great things about learning over grinding. In grinding, time is accumulating proportionally to skill, hopefully. While learning, you may only have to find 1 or 2 good tips to improve dramatically and become vastly more efficient in 15 minutes of mostly repetitive content. Now we should talk about the ratio you want to learn between basic and advanced things. First off, don't learn only the basics. You can never perfect the fundamentals, and waiting until you do before trying advanced stuff means you will never consider yourself ready for a higher level move or tactic. Second, don't learn only advanced stuff. Without a strong foundation, people oftentimes don't do advanced moves correctly at all, resulting in a high rate of failure. Learn a mix of the basics and advanced things. The basics are more important if for some reason you can only pick one. Basics are easier to execute, which makes them more consistent. They are also more general than advanced moves, since they come into use more often, and they have a higher percentage success rate if learned well. Fundamentals should constantly be improved and refined. I haven't changed the mechanical technique of my aim since I started playing mouse and keyboard, but just a few weeks ago I completely overhauled my aim from my grip to my mouse to my sensitivity. It's made me a much stronger player. However, there was a time when I was foolish enough to think I knew everything there was to know about all the basics. You would be wise to avoid that mental trap. Now, I sometimes rewatch the basics just as a refresher or to get a few pointers. Improving one of the basics even slightly can have a huge effect since you use them so much more often. Advanced moves are more situational. Yes, they are technically a lower percent success rate, but typically only if you use them incorrectly, don't have good basics, or use them in the wrong situation. Using advanced moves correctly in the right situation rather than forcing them gives them a very high success rate. I was a big fan of the no-scope in CSGO, and that is carried over to Valorant. I don't use it because it's flashy. I use it because it's practical in a very select few situations. Within these situations, I have a reasonable success rate, certainly higher than if I never went for the no-scope. Learn advanced moves, and, just as important, learn when to use them. If you combine them with great basics, you will become a truly formidable player. Next on the menu, bring in information from other aspects of your life. The box is Valorant, and you hopefully do something in your life that isn't Valorant. You can pull methods from your hobbies and whatnot and put them into Valorant, especially if they concern human nature. For example, chess strategy can be transferred into Valorant, even though Valorant is not chess. Maybe you are super good with people. Use that to create good team chemistry and win. Maybe you play a musical instrument and you understand tempo. Use that to look for patterns in attacker movements so that you can successfully predict when they are going to commit to and attack a site. Maybe you make wood carvings and have an immaculate eye for detail. Use that to process information and tell your team when something doesn't quite add up. Maybe there's a flank. I don't know what you do, but if your life is outside the box of Valorant, and hopefully it is, there is a very good chance you can use that to gain an advantage. These are the 4 main areas you want to learn about new ways to play Valorant. Let's talk about how to optimize these 4 areas a bit more to help you learn faster before wrapping up the video with those recommended and less common search categories. If you want to learn quickly, take notes. It's not like school. Just take notes however you want. It can be a good idea to take notes in pictures. Also, make sure to put what you learn into use. Practice it a little if you have to. It's not going to do you any good to learn something and then not apply it at all. The next bit is very important. Only focus on changing one thing at a time. In any Valorant game, you're already focused on a bunch of different things. Trying to build 2 new habits or focus on 2 new changes at once is ridiculously difficult. Just focus on changing one thing and doing it really well and then move on. That doesn't mean you have to learn one thing at a time. That's why you're taking notes, to come back and practice other things that you learn later. Try to make things easy and effortless if possible. The less that something requires your focus, the better. Typically, the easier something is to execute, the more often you will successfully complete it. If something feels really difficult, that's often an indication you can make it more efficient. And sometimes grinding will be necessary. Just try to minimize it. I almost never grind unless I have a glaring weakness that I can't figure out another remedy for. You may need to grind more often, that's up to your own judgment. Finally, here are a list of things that you can search, which you may not know much about. I'll list all of these in the description. Strategy, fakes, conditioning, second intention, how angles work, essentially your proximity to angles, counter-strafing, which is a bit more common, the sneaky style, entry fragging, playing the spike, how to play the afterplant, plant spots, prefiring, spraying through smoke, wallbanging, reading opponents, advanced map control, one-ways, how resolutions work, and a bunch more. That will be all for the first video on how to improve at Valorant. I couldn't cover everything, but this should definitely be enough to get you started. I hope you can improve more efficiently as a result of this video, and I hope you have a good day. Best of luck everyone, and I will see you next time.